The behaviors of our kids are always being related with the values which has been given to them. What I said, I repeat. All the behaviors which we show, which are visible in front of our kids, they are the true reflection of the values which has been given to them. Now, if I ask you from where they got the values, and please remember that values trigger behaviors and behaviors reinforce the values. Values trigger the behavior and behaviors reinforce the values. From where we got our values. So if I reflect upon myself, I said we were all lucky as a X generation or a Y generation. We have so much undivided attentions of our parents onto us. So we got our values from our parents, number one. Number two, we got our values from our schooling. At that time, we have found we are so much lucky, we have so much passionate teachers with us who are very, very much focused into our development. And number three, we got our values from our society. So the people can relate easily when we say that we are the beneficiary, that we lived in a society which is having a very close knitted fabric. We have been living into the towns and the streets where not only our immediate family, rather all our neighborhood was being equally keen about ourselves, and they look into if we are doing anything bad, they can spot it then and there, and they were very much concerned. So we were lucky, we were getting our values from where? We got our values from our parents, from our schools, teachers, and from our society. Now, whatsoever the behaviors have been there is a reflection of those values. Now, fast forward. If I ask you, today our kids, from where they are getting their values? That's my question to you. Think about it. Parents, do they have enough time for their kids? That's a question. I'm not going to answer for you. You have a better answer with yourself. Do you have a time for your kids to give some valuable values into them? Question number one. Question number two, are they getting any sort of values from their schools? Or the school has just happened to be a sort of a printing press which has just been minting money only, and they are not much bother about except A grade, B grade, D grade, the values of the kid, how much they have been caring about that. Number three, from where they are getting the values. Values mean there is not having a close-knitted society. So from where they are spending the time, they are spending a time with the social media. Now the question is, when they are spending a time with the majority of the time with the social media and the tablets, what they are getting their values? They are getting from that. And these values are a hodgepodge of so many different things which create confusion. So my dear friends, what is most important right now, we have to look into that. What values we are being transferring down to our kids? Because their behavior, so if sometime you observe that your behaviors, your kids are not behaving in a rational way, they are short-tempered, they are adamant, you have to question it. You have to question it, what values are driving their behaviors? Now, whenever I say, sometime because we are busy and we ask our kids, okay, you just have to go, just watch some movie, just go to the cartoons, etc. You know, my dear friends, what is happening? Always I said, whenever there is a connection happen, we get inspired with that. In our childhood, when we are get connected with our teachers, when we get connected with our parents, we are being inspired with their values, with their actions. Now, if I get inspired with some of the characters from the movies or from the cartoons, etc. So what happened? Whatsoever the dialogues are happening between the characters, that on a subliminal level, that goes into my unconscious level. So if I found that some of my favorite characters in cartoons, they are behaving rationally, irrationally, honestly speaking, that is ingrained into my behavior. So my dear friends, my question is, how much you yourself is caring about those values? That is the most important part. I'm going to reflect upon some of the important things that when I was growing up, I remember that my mother, when I was in grade 2, and she given me my first pocket money. And the moment she given me my first pocket money, she said, Kamran, let's go to the market. I was so happy. I said, all right, mother, let's go to the market, because what was in my mind, I'm going to get certain candies around there. Now, what happened when I reached to the market? My mother did not took me to the candy store. My mother took me to a bookstore. And she asked me, Kamran, you have to buy a book. Now I said, no mother, I don't want to buy a book, I want to buy a candy. She said, you are going to get a candy, I'm going to give it to you, but you have to buy a book, buy your money which is given to you. Now, I remember I buy the book, and every time she gave a candy by herself. So every time that process repeated, and you know, my dear friends, what happened? I remember that was the biggest value I got in my life. That biggest value was that my mother has given me a template that whenever you are having your money in your hand, what should be your first purchase? Your first purchase should be a book. And what you got from a book? You got a best of the best essence of the experiences of so many people. And then this distilled down into your life. I think that was the best gift I got in my life. And the another value which I'm going to highlight, and I would say that we can take it as an inspiration, that a value of giving by my father. When I was being there, my father used to give a sort of charity to the people, but every time my father showed that act, not by himself, rather he given that money in my hand and said, Kamran, just go and give it to that needy. Now that template of giving has actually transferred down into that level that even if I'm doing that session is actually at the back end of that value of giving which has been so much profound in my life, my dear friends. Now my question is, whenever I talk about that, what exactly is the value we are giving? So I'm going to highlight that our kids are not inspired by our lectures. They are inspired by our actions, my dear friends.